I'd like to know something. I'd like to know why your government insists on lying to the world about us. You see what our life is like. You hear what they say. Why did that? She got really angry. My friend was Dr. Cynthia McKinney, who is a political science professor at North South University in Dhaka in Bangladesh. Bangladesh is a Muslim country, as most people know, and her students, her poli-sci students, came to her one day asking about basically U.S. propaganda towards China that focuses on the alleged oppression of Muslims and particularly Uyghurs by People's Republic. They came to her saying, we go back and forth just normally. This is how our families have done, forever. The borders between here and Western China are pretty open, and people flow back and forth and have for 1,000 years. We go there to see people, and we know exactly what it's like. And this stuff that comes out of your government is obviously a lie, and it's ridiculous to us knowing the facts. Why is it that they do that? And so she said, being a college professor, listen, here we are in a college. First of all, we have to make an inquiry what's really happening. How do you do that? We go there, we prepare a study, and we go there and we ask people, what's your life like? And so that's what they did. They prepared a questionnaire. It was 3 pages, I think, in English, Chinese, Arabic, and I forget what else. And went around. We went to the Muslim quarters in each of the cities. We went to Urumqi, Dunhuang, Xi'an, and Nanjing. And we spent 3, 4 days in each one working, and then a day or two in each one, looking around and having fun. My first impression when I stepped off the plane out of the airport, looking at Urumqi, was this is a modern city. It's like in the middle of Asia. I think it's the furthest city from any coast in the whole world. I think, if I'm not mistaken. And so I had this first impression of wow, they're big urban modern buildings visible from the door when you walk out, and everything looked new and bustling and not at all what I would think of as a backwash, like, way in the interior of China, away from the coasts and everything. So that was my very first impression. We stayed, the Conrad, for example, was near very close to the largest mosque in Urumqi. And we went to other mosques, and also we made a point of trying to eat and hang out in halal restaurants and other Muslim businesses where people congregated. So everyone that we spoke with that was, first of all, surprised to hear, because we did ask at some point in time, there's this story about this. Do you know anything about any of this? Have you seen, people being taken away in the middle of the night by guys in trench coats and, all of that stuff? And, people would laugh at how ridiculous it was. Like, how would you describe your life? Would you say your life here? Would you say it's excellent, good, or a very good, good, not so good, whatever, 5 or 6 gradients? And what are your experiences with the government, both the local government, dealing with the city? Do you have any problems, with your day-to-day life or business or whatever? The same with the national government. Do you feel that your voice is heard when policy is being made here? Blah blah blah. All these different things that are markers of how do you feel about your environment? Is it healthy and constructive or not? What kind of a relationship do you feel you have with the state? It's kind of marveling to us looking at the way these things have been built. You have the old towns that are in very good repair and preserved and vibrant. And then these rings, where you can see the development as the newer development, these beautiful apartment complexes that here would be characterized luxury apartments and such that ring the cities in huge numbers. And the new city that's developed around them, it's very impressive. So, but we went to the old towns, and we would stop in. For example, here's a businesses there. Some of them solicit people to come in, especially they see foreigners coming through. They made a point, come on in, have coffee, whatever. We went in some places. One, it was a 3-story building, and we went in, and the wife, maybe in her 50s, early 60s, and one of her sisters and one of their friends, all around the same age, are kind of managing the floor, the tables on this side of the counter, well, waiting tables and greeting people and taking orders and such. And then the husband is in the back on the grill, like sweating with a chef's hat on. And one of his friends is sitting over on the side, sipping on a beer. And this is a coffee shop with a little bakery and things in it. So the three of us ordered coffees, and the three women sat down with us and were talking. So Cynthia did a formal interview with her and one of her friends, not the sister, but the friend. That it took like 10 minutes each. And then we all started talking. And the husband came out and sat down and had coffee and stuff. So I was curious about this three-story building. I said, why would you live? I mean, it's nice and everything, but why would you live here when that you have all these modern conveniences and the views alone from one of those apartments must be magnificent? She said, we've always been here. This is ours. We live here. This is ours. This place is ours. Talking about like the whole community too, where she is at. I had no idea that people in China with the socialist and the whole history of it since 1949 had this sense of like proprietorship, not formal, but essential proprietorship that I own the things in my life. And that impressed me a lot. Then we went to Dunhuang. The scale of Dunhuang is much more, see, the word I use here is going to sound strange in the context of what I just said, much more human scale. It's not so many skyscrapers, a lot of 2- and 3-story buildings. You have the hotel we stayed in. I don't know if it was a replica of an old, like a little petite village. I don't know, like 4 blocks of 2-story buildings with retail on the first floor and various residential on the second. No cars, like walking, and it's like almost like a contained strip mall. I don't know if that's an original that's been maintained or if it's a mock-up, whatever. Very comfortable. We stayed in this place. Across the main street that this fronted on was desert and a mountain, sand mountain. So this was the view from our room, our window. There was a camel ride up the sand mountain, like in real. It felt more like a city maybe in the 1930s or 40s in terms of scale. Or here, like in like Greenwich Village in New York City, or maybe like Greenwich Village was 20 years ago, not quite so much auto traffic. And it was walkable, but busy. We went to the marketplace there also. In fact, I sang karaoke there. Now, again, you have 4 or 5 blocks of, the streets are closed, there's tables, lined with restaurants and shops on both sides. Well, we went to what's it called, seminary or a place where people study to be imams. We went there and interviewed people who were students studying, and they were most definitely from, they were Uyghur. And also, there were a lot of people that were Kazakh that we met. And also in Urumqi, that was true. We asked about not just that these students had with, with the world as Muslims, was there a problem? And also officially, because they have the school and the mosque there, how they related to the authorities. And it's inconceivable to me that people would make up the stories that are made up because they're so easily debunked if you actually go and look. But I guess statistically, not enough people have the wherewithal or the interest or whatever to go and look. And so what's on the other side of the world for like 90% of the population or more, your knowledge of it is mediated. The facilities were in incredibly excellent repair. It was like polished. And then at the mosque we went to in Xi'an also, that was another large congregation, large facility. By their appearance, you can tell that there's not a problem with the authorities. There's no sign, first of all, shutting it down, but also whatever resources you need to maintain gold leafing and windows and roofs and pavement and such are obviously available. We went to Nanjing. We went to a halal restaurant. We got there about 4 in the afternoon, and they weren't really open yet. And we said that we wanted to talk to some people, maybe some of his customers, maybe some of the staff, whatever, and have this. No problem, no problem. Get to sit and read. So we did that. And when we got to that business, There were, I think, either 4 or 5 people seated. This was a real conversation and not just the questionnaire. We got to ask some details about, are you enjoying your life here? Do you feel like you have work that's satisfying, that you have the freedom to choose what you want to do, that your needs are taken care of, you're not worried about living outdoors and, all of these basic things? And do you feel oppressed? Do you feel that the government is breathing down your neck, et cetera, et cetera? We got through all of that. And it was a very pleasant conversation. And the answer to all of it was, of course, we're happy here. That's why we're here. I'm having a good, I have a good life. My children have a good life, and maybe they'll have a better life than mine. But mine, if they have a life like mine, that'll be fine too. We get through all of that. This one woman who was not in the family, I think, said, I'd like to know something. I'd like to know why your government insists on lying to the world about us. You see what our life is like. You hear what they say. Why did that? She got really angry, like very emotional. And it was hard for me, it felt like it, and I know it wasn't, but it almost felt like she was angry with us personally. I think it's because we were there. But she took it very personally. And I mean, obviously you would, right? My impression at the end of all of this, I was more convinced. I had surmised, having studied and participated in U.S. History and engagement in the world. I'm 70 years old now. So, and I've been interested in this stuff since I was in school, 5, 6 years old. So 60 years anyway of having some understanding what's going on. Assumed, particularly given the almost cartoon-like presentation they make, that what was being said about China's treatment of Uyghurs and Muslims was not true. I assumed it also, knowing the history of China and knowing world history and human behavior, there would be absolutely no purpose whatsoever for China to do these things to people in China, because it's never in anyone's interest to do that. China is obviously doing something right. They're very successfully going from where they were 50 years ago to basically being like the design of the future for our species, perhaps. I was doing this calculus in my head, walking into breakfast one morning in Xi'an, that right now there's 1.5 billion people eating breakfast, and they're going to have lunch and dinner too. That's 4.5 billion meals that have to be prepared every day. And I know everyone here eats. So that alone gave me like a respect for the scale of the operation of the economy in China. So I was suspicious anyway, because I don't buy cartoons very easily. But when I got there and saw the life there, would be the envy of most people in the United States if they were looking at it with their eyes opened. That without the haze of propaganda that would, looking at this, looking at a city full of people, what people are up to today, how it works, who gets what at the end of the day, most people in this country would be very envious of people in China, in the cities that I visited. I think that's the most concise summary of what I saw that I can come up with. I know I'm one of them.